Even today, it's more or less similar, but the realm has grown a bit, right? If you talk in that sense, so it just not talks about the topology or the networks or the websites or web apps. It also about data, right? What we are here for, right?
Hello everyone, my name is Vaibhav Aruna and I am from GrowJunction. And for this podcast, we have with us Mr. Hardik Goel. So, before starting the podcast, I'd like to give a brief introduction about Sir. So, Sir has done his BTech in Computer Science Engineering. He is currently working as a technical data engineering lead at Paytm. Not just that, he has a work ex with one of the top companies like Accenture, Cognizant, Impetus. Sir, it's great to have you on our podcast. Uh, so if you can give a brief introduction about your role, about your responsibilities at Paytm, what are your day-to-day responsibilities, what are your KPIs, what are your KRAs, and give us a brief understanding about that.
Sure. Thank you, Weber, for that lovely introduction. Yeah, hi all. So currently, I'm working as a technical lead in the data engineering domain at the PTM. My KRAs, my KPIs, they particularly involve, around building pipelines, around the data analytics, around data science, and all those buzzwords that we keep on hearing today, right? Yeah. So more often than not, it's more of a software engineering kind of a job mixed with your data science professional kind of a job. And yeah, we are basically creating an ecosystem. We basically try to create something which is important and beneficial for the times to come, for people, for generations, right? And therefore Paytm, right? You guess that, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it, I believe.
And so I saw in your profile, it says, like I am not from a IT background or a very technical background, like I am technically hampered. Like I'm from CBSE and I know very basics of any technical language. You said there was thing like big data developer. So what is a big data developer? What does it do? Because for me, a lot of people will be hampered in terms of IT skills. So if you can brief us about that.
Sure, sure. So big data has been a recent, a very recent thing in a couple of years, I would say. And yeah, so basically what happens is we have all these companies, be it a telco company, be it related to the BFSI domain, be it a retail or products, services, etc., or a consulting firm. So every company has a huge set of data, right? Earlier, that data used to be small, so there were traditional databases, there were traditional systems, which were used to, do the analytics on that, do the engineering on that, and everybody was happy, right? The client was happy, people were happy, employees were happy, everything was going good. But now, due to the sudden surge of the data, it became an apparent need to introduce some kind of a concept, some kind of a technology, some kind of a method to handle those kind of data, vast data, different kinds of data, and streamline them, so that you can analyze on them, so that you can do the engineering on them, and what all and what not. So basically play around data and huge massive scale of data. We are talking about not just GBs, TBs, petabytes, and even zettabytes at times. So that scale of data, that is big data, as the name suggests, that is big data.
Like for me, concept of data ends at a 2 GB file, a 4 GB file, 16 GB memory. That's my concept of how big data can be. But obviously, these companies generate a huge amount of data. Uh, Another very important concept that I would like you to clear is first was big data developer, and next was cloud. Means what is cloud, what it is, and yeah, if you can brief us about that.
Sure, sure, definitely. So, if we look back at, I believe, 6 to 7 years down the line, I mean, ago, so we would see we had on-prem system, as we like to call it. On-prem system means every company, every huge company, be it Google, be it Amazon, be it your Facebook, etc., etc., any FAANG company or any manga company, as to say, or even a small based mid-sized level company. So they used to have their own set of servers at their own locations. They used to have a huge geographical locations at their places, right? And to even create a website or to do something as small as an application, you need to have the requests. I know I may sound a bit technical here, but how do I say, the traffic which had to be routed through those servers which are on their premise. We call them on-prem service. What used to happen if the server went down for some reason? It could be due to the downtime in the geographical location, or it could be for several other reasons, right? Infrastructural issues. The entire system used to go down. Their application used to go down. They used to have a great business impact. They used to cost billions of dollars, right?
Yeah, just
So,
interrupt
yeah,
that because that is where we heard a lot of times Mr. Her server is down, server is down. Was that because
exactly.
of that?
Right. Yes, exactly. That is one of the big reasons. So even today, we see our traditional Indian banks, they have not migrated to cloud yet. They are yet to do that. And therefore, you might have witnessed very often than not that you go to the SBI and they'll say, no, no, right now our server is down and come after 1 or 2 hours. And then you go, then it's lunchtime and we're going home. So so it happens that way also. So okay, so this led to the emergence of your cloud computing. Your basically three cloud players came into picture. One is your Amazon with AWS, the second is your Google, which came with GCP, third is the Microsoft, which came with Azure. There are ton others, Alibaba Cloud, Oracle Cloud, etc., etc. But these three are the major players. So they guarantee about 99.9999% availability. That means it's a very, very, very rare chance that their systems will go down and you'll have a loss of business. So all these systems, all the servers from this on-prem move towards the cloud, and that's what we are seeking today. That's all cloud computing is all about.
Yes, sir. I wanted to just give this question. Like when you say the guaranteed 99% of say that your server will not go down, that is the guarantee. So means how do they guarantee that? Yeah, what technology do they use that they are able to guarantee this?
Great. Okay, glad that you asked. So they have very efficient mechanisms, routing mechanisms. So, for example, they have created their infrastructure in such a way that if at one geographical location, one of the nodes go down, one of the server systems go down, then the system can automatically switch to another geographical location, another region, another availability zone, as we call it, right? So we have different availability zones, we have different regions. It's a entire concept altogether. And based on that, we have our data routed. The latency, it also matters, right? The cost of the data that goes in and out, that's also one of the things that comes into the picture. So in a very basic layman language, this is how they maintain. They have a quick switching mechanism and a DR. DR is disaster recovery. So these kind of setups they have.
So what I am understanding is that they are able to manage this because of the size they have as compared to a smaller company which does not have so many size that it can switch from one node to another. But since they have or they're working at a much larger scale, so they can manage traffic much better than your normal company, which are working at a much smaller scale.
Definitely, definitely, that is one of the aspects. Yeah.
And also, sir, in terms of something that I have seen as an MBA grad, is that now in this year's placement, a lot of IT companies are taking MBA grads, and these IT companies are growing a lot. Means they are after the COVID. I've seen that the IT companies is absorbing a lot of the employees from MBA grads. There, a lot of the companies are coming that are IT based. So, if you can tell us something about that growth as well, that after COVID, so many IT companies are taking so many MBA graduates. So, why is this happening, and something about that? And what are they? What are the particular thing they are taking them for? That also.
Mhm. Right. So IT has always been, one of the domains or one of the streams in MBA, right? One is your finance. If you talk about the traditional, not talking about the new or the niche domains that have come today. But if you talk about the traditional set, then we have finance, marketing, HR, operations, IT operations and support, or IT operations and management, IT ops we call it, right? So we have that domain. We always had that domain. The definition of that domain has predominantly changed over a period of time now, because earlier the companies were looking at professionals who were good at creating solutions or creating architectures, right? Or creating a set of how a network should be, how a company's network topology should be, right? Or how or basically to more towards the consulting side of it, right? So right, what is expected out of an MBA grad, right? Or MBA post grad, right? So they do not expect you to work on the ground level, to work as a software engineer, to work like that, but to create to create solutions for the team to understand and to implement that. So that has been the work majorly a couple of years ago. Even today, it's more or less similar, but the realm has grown a bit, right? If you talk in that sense, so it just not talks about the topology or the networks or the websites or web apps. It also talks about data, right? What we are here for, right? Today, if companies like Meta, they are hiring, or even if smaller sized companies, they can hire managers for crypto as well, right? For crypto, for blockchain. So blockchain developer is one thing, blockchain management is one thing, crypto management is one thing. So it depends on the company to company, roles to roles, projects to projects, that what and where, what kind of methodology or management skills they want from their candidates. And definitely, consulting roles is one of the major roles that have been expected out of the MBA students. Yeah,
Yeah, so means talking about the MBA aspect, like how much of the technical knowledge do these MBA grads need to have while going into an IT company? Like if someone goes into Accenture as someone who is managing a particular product, maybe it's an IT product, they are managing that. So how much of the company expects them to have technical knowledge of what's happening? Obviously, they'll have the business knowledge of how to sell this product, how to finance this product, but how much of the technical knowledge is required?
right, right. So, as far as the core technical knowledge is required, I don't think the MBA students are expected to know that. For that, we have BE or BTech grads, right? Program management, project management, or even product management, right? So these three can be the domains, these three can be the areas where the skills, the theory or the concepts or the principles that you guys have learned over a period of 2 years, so that could be implemented. For taking out the technical part, they already have people. They have people who are ready to work, who know languages such as Java, Python, etc., go on, so on and so forth, right? For you, uh, they have an I mean, they have an expectation that you should be knowing, for example, in the sprints, right? You should be knowing what an agile methodology is, right? So agile methodology is one of the project management techniques that we have. What is the waterfall model, for example? These kind of things, because these are basic project management or program management skills. So things like these soft skills, making PPTs, definitely, right? And pitching to client.
Making
Sorry for that.
PPTs, making PPTs is like the best hobby of MBA grads. They can make PPTs at 3 o'clock also.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, basically pitching to the client, asking them for the pre-sales part. So think of it this way: they want their hires to be to have a very basic idea about everything, about the ongoings. For example, what are the current trend, or what is the current trend in the IT field? If you say today, then data, again the script or blockchain or these things, DevOps is third thing. So these things are the hot skills kind of a thing that we have today. So if for example, they go to their client and they want to pitch some things. They want to pitch some of their product, and the client says, "Okay, so we would want this is this many this much data, right? Your product has this much data, and we want some kind of a mechanism to handle that data also. So what methodology or what approach do you have for this?" So that person should be able to explain that yes, we have an in-house team of developers who are ready to work on this aspect. He's not expected to know how they'll do it, but he's expected to know what his organization can do. He should be known about the jargons, basically. Long story short.
At least the basic of the whole process.
Exactly.
Not
Jack
the
of all trades.
yeah, not the technical thing that I'll use this code, I'll use this technology, but I'll this is the whole process and this is how it will happen. That basic
Exactly.
understanding you need if you're going into an IT company as an MBA grad. Uh,
Hmm.
so one of okay, now these are two questions that are my personal whenever I see someone who is from a technical background. Is number one, what do you see is the future of technology, future of IT? Uh, that is the first question. And yeah, then we'll get to the next question. But what do you think is the future? Where is the employability coming? Both from technical aspect, which will provide employability, as well as from an MBA grad aspect, in terms of the IT sphere or in terms of the technical sphere.
Hmm. Okay. So, talking about the first facet of the first question that you have, how do I see the technical side in upcoming future? So, I think it's very bright. It's not going to die. It's not going to get dormant. The reason for that is uh, technical stuff is something which which I would say which is not everyone's cup of tea, right? You have to have a specific kind of a skill set, right? Be it if you are a developer, if you are a QA, if you are into some other domain of it, then you need to have a certain set of skill set. And things are getting digitalized every day. With every passing day, everything is coming on computers. We are trying to, we are talking about AI. We are talking about robots. We are talking about RPA or the robot, how it's governing us today, right? The machine learning models that we have today. So it is efficient and it is capable of doing pretty much everything that we want them to do. For that, they need an understanding, they need data, they need code, they need an understanding or an algorithm. So technical side is going to sustain for some time, for some, I would say some decades, I would, if I'm not wrong.
So if you
Okay,
like to
first side.
pinpoint like some of the technologies that you feel would grow, would be in demand, or some particular skill that will be in demand, you say it is in demand right now, but in future their demand will increase, and someone who is joining, say, engineering now, he's in first year of engineering, he's in the computer science field, you would say, okay, like me, wherever you can work on these things, these things could be the future of your technical skills.
Yeah. Okay. So first basic myth. I often get this question a lot. First basic thing that every fresher or even an experienced candidate needs to know is technology comes in and it goes out. Right. It's as simple as that. You cannot stick on a technology. You cannot say that, okay, I know this, I'm going to retire with this. No, it's not going to happen. You need to know the basics. You need to have a good grasp on the things which are the fundamental building blocks. So I'm being a bit technical here. If you are primarily from a computer science background and you are possibly in your last year of engineering or something like that, then I would recommend strengthen your programming skills. Right, what is often taught as a very which is underrated in BTech. So strengthen your programming skills, strengthen your data structures, strengthen your algorithms, strengthen your SQL. SQL is your database management skills, right? Querying. Because see, if you see, I have a reason why I have specifically chosen these particular points. If you talk about SQL, right? So SQL is querying the database. Database earlier used to be RDBMSs. That means Oracle, you might have heard Oracle, MySQL, these kind of databases which used to have a very traditional approach, right? Data used to be stored in those databases only,
Yes.
even then. And today, the definitions of those RDBMS has changed to possibly NoSQL, to possibly new SQL databases, right? And we have plethora of other kind of databases, right? Search engines and what all and whatnot, right? So query remains same. Even today, we query on those databases. Technology might be different, way is different, syntax is different, but the underlying what do I say, module, it's the same. There is a table, there are columns, there are rows, etc., etc. Right? So querying the databases to create anything for a user, no matter how easy it may be, right? When I say easy, I mean to say how approachable UI it has, right? For a very non-technical user, if we are trying to create something, then we as a developer need to create that in a sense that it creates value. And to create value and to create, a good fit or a better website or a better application with a better UI, you need to be good at coding. Okay, so from that mindset, I am coming on coding. That you need, if you are being a developer, then you have a primary responsibility of being a good coder. Everything comes second. You might or might not know much about the networks. That's okay. You might or might not know much about the discrete maths. That is okay. DLDs or DEs. That is okay. Digital logic designing or digital engineering. No, that's okay. But these are the fundamentals which uh, even companies coming for the interview they look for, right? And even a person who has to gain some experience and who comes later in their stages, they'll realize that okay, yeah,
Yes, sorry to interrupt you. You mean to say that you have to keep your basics, the basics of, say, a computer science engineer will not change. They will be built upon, these technologies will be built from these basics only. So if you have kept your basics strong in the 4 years of your engineering, even if a new technology comes up, even if a new style comes up, you will be able to learn and adapt to it if your basics are strong.
absolutely, absolutely. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
And so also in terms of MBA part also, what new technologies are coming up, how they can utilize that in the IT sphere, what would their source of employment be if they want to go into the technical space?
The first and the foremost thing that I can think of in IT sector is keep yourself up to date. It's a very simple formula. Again, I would reiterate, technologies come, they go out. Today, we have these three technologies which are at their peak, right? Your data analytics, data science. Second is your DevOps. Third is your crypt or your blockchain or these kind of things. So today we have a market high or a hot market of these three technologies. 5 years ago, I would say app development, right? iOS or Android app, that was a very booming sector. Now the graph is, like this. So it's quite stagnant today. 8 years or 9 years ago, we used to have a website development, which used to be in high demand,
Yes.
right? Everybody wanted to be a website developer, a front end engineer back then. Okay. So you do not know in 5 years or 6 years down the line, we might see some entirely new field where we are primarily reading about or studying about robots. That what is their psychology when we train them, how do they work, right? Or what exactly are they meant to be, and how do we have to train them so that they do not become fatal for human, right? And we have to train them in an efficient way. So you never know. This might be a subject, and this might pick up the pace. So be up to date, know around you, read, study. I think that's good.
Yes. So when you say that 5 years down the line, say app development was something that was in trend, I completely relate to that because when I started my engineering, it's been 5 years back. When I used to talk to my colleagues who were in computer science, who were doing computer science, they were saying that ऐप डेवलपमेंट का कोर्स कर लेते हैं, वी शुड डू समथिंग रिलेटेड टू ऐप डेवलपमेंट, दिस कंपनी का ऐप ऐसा है, इट्स नॉट प्रॉपर्ली डिजाइन फॉर मोबाइल, It's good on website, but not on mobile. So this was the conversation 5 years back. But now it is somewhat become the standard. Like a company, it will have an app, it will have a website. Now what you will do next? So
Exactly.
another thing that I want to ask you is that another thing that has come up is entrepreneurship. A lot of people have now come into the entrepreneurship wave. It's a new thing. So how can entrepreneurs for a small company which is may not be of the size of say a big firm, a small company can use IT, can use technical solutions in order to upgrade its business, in order to reach to that next level that it has tried to reach. But obviously, smaller companies have tighter budgets. So, at a small scale, how can they use IT and IT solutions in order to upgrade to the next level? And also adding to that, since you are related to data, how can they use data as well?
Sure. So as I was saying, that we have, these smaller companies, these mid-sized companies, these small level companies, they can leverage from a open source technology, that we have a very huge open source community, Apache majorly. So that is one such community which has plethora of projects, plethora of utilities. They can easily integrate them into their lives, right? And see, with the proprietary software, I would say comes bundling. Okay, so for example, you might have a product, a proprietary product, a licensed product, where you can also do the, you can also do the basic initial ingestion, you can also do the transformation, you can also do the loading, you can also do the analytics, all in one go, all at one point, right? But if you do not have the budget, or if you are a mid-sized company, then you would not want to go for a licensed product. Then in that case, you have an entirely different tool for ingestion, you have an entirely different tool for transformation, you have an entirely different tool for your loading and for the analytics as well. So you can use all those four separate tools instead of that one tool in one umbrella, and that's how you can save your costs. So that is one thing which startups and the,
Yeah.
yeah, small
So
companies can
one
implement.
one more thing that you can explain from your answer, because if a young someone wants to start a business is listening this and does not have technical expertise like me, what is open source software when you talk about that? If you can just tell
Hmm.
something about that.
Sure, sure. So open source is basically a freeware, as we like to call it. That means you can, just use that software. You can just download that. You can just integrate and start to use it. They have a very good documentation, so you do not get stuck. Also, we also have a community. I would not say just community. It's kind of a Bible, Stack Overflow, right? That we have. So that is one such community where you get answers of most of the things. So if you get stuck somewhere, then you can probably find the answers there also. And you have plethora of YouTube videos, courses on Udemy, courses on Pluralsight, if anybody wants to learn these kind of tools and technologies. So, all in all, again, if your basics are correct, if you have a thing for this thing, then definitely you'll be good too.
So a very important question, since you have a worked for so many years working at different companies, working at different projects. So again, this is again a two-part question. Number one, if someone is fresh and is going into the corporate world, suppose as a software engineer, as a big data developer, what can he expect from the industry as such? What would be his life? What would be his work-life balance in terms of that? And also in terms of how we can grow in that industry. What is the progression? How we can grow in that industry? What is the initial expectations when he's coming in, and once he's settled, once he's understand, how can he grow? So the two aspects to that question.
Okay. So once we have a fresh grad, once we have a fresh hire, then they can expect, you know, firstly, they'll be in their, rosy phases of life where they'll be enjoying the initial days or the initial months of their, first time salary getting credited. And, and it's perfectly okay. I perfectly believe you should have a few months for yourself where you can cherish these months at a later point of time. That, okay, in my initial work, in my initial job, we used to have this, we used to have that. That was the fun that we did. Today we are just working. Today we are just a corporate slave. That's a very popular opinion about it. So people go. They can expect. In, I'll take one aspect at a time. So if you talk about work-life balance, then it's totally up to them, right? I mean, there are companies, there are projects which demands you to, stretch a little, and there are projects which says that okay, your job is from 9 to 5, you do that and you're good to go. So, how much do you want to invest in yourself after the office hours is the thing which is going to give you a big leap, right? So, for example, if you are working in a company and you're working to create some software where you have a very small piece, right? Very, very small piece to work upon, you'll work there. You'll have a learning, you'll have a growth, but it will not be a very, very huge growth as you should have. So obviously, you should invest in yourself. You should see, you should understand, you should know, okay, in my industry, what are all the things that are around me? What are the things that could interest me? What are the things that I can look forward to? What is a hot skill today, right? Where the market is heading. So in a couple of months, you will get to know about all these ifs and buts, and then you can target to, probably switch or ask for an internal increment within the same organization for that particular tech stack. The goal should be to keep yourself proactive, to keep yourself awake, to keep yourself motivated at all times.
I just
Yeah,
believe
that's what it
that
is.
this thing of keeping you proactive and keeping you awake just takes a quantum jump when you're talking about technology, because technology is changing at a much faster rate than anything else. Be it, I'll say, traditional skills of MBA, be it finance. I think finance is about to see a big change now with crypto coming in. But these financial rules, these accounting rules have been going on for say 20 years, 30 years. But technology is something like one day a big company comes up with something new and suddenly there's a big shift. Everybody has to shift to the new aspect. So, as we come to the end of this podcast, I just have a very cliche question to ask. There's a very famous quote like, data is the new oil. This we get in our all our say group discussions for if we have interviewing for a technical company. So, what do you have to say on that? Because I'll take some points for my group discussion also if I have in my MBA. So, data is the new oil, and then we'll move on to the last questions. Before that, if we can answer this.
Sure, sure. Correctly mentioned, data is the new oil, is the new electricity, I could say, right? The new electric vehicles coming down or hydrogen companies coming down. Uh, jokes apart, see, if you even talk about companies which are working on core finance, I'll take the analogy from this way: working on core finance, working on risk assessment, we could call it, right? So, in the risk assessment, in the credit field, you have to understand and analyze the risks. That okay, if I give the loan to this person, what is the probability that he'll repay me back, or will that loan is going to be an NPA, right? Is that going to be an NPA? So what is the probability, and how do you calculate that probability? One such aspect is your credit score. We have several other aspects, right? So you take all those parameters together, you create a model, right? You fill those fields in a model, and that model generates the result for you that okay, give this person this much line, credit line. Okay, if he's asked for, let's say, 50 lakh worth of loan, give him only 20. He can only repay 20 based on his current salary that he has. So see how machine learning model gave an input to you, right? Saved your industry from hitting a very huge loss. Same way, we can take this kind of an example in every industry that we can think of. Okay, so okay, let's talk about some marketing company. They want to predict their annual sales, and they want to know, okay, what are the pain points that our customers are facing today. Hmm? They can have a website and they can have a feedback mechanism, the reviews, where the customer posts the reviews. So they can create, there is one such thing as sentiment analyzer, right, in Python. So using that sentiment analyzer, you can run that on your website on all the reviews, and you can get the data that okay, these many reviews are positive reviews, these many are your neutral reviews, these many are your bad reviews. Let's focus on the bad reviews, what they have to say. Okay, so that way you got to know, right? Graphically, you got to know what's happening in and out, what I should be looking at, what I should be focusing at. So it all happened due to data. We had data, we had humongous data. That data was not just raw information, that data was put to real use. That data was uh, made information, I would say. Right. So once it was made information, then you can, go and analyze as per your needs. So in a nutshell, that's how every company is operating today. They have data knowingly or unknowingly. It all comes down to how they can leverage that. One more point I would just like to take. For example, we have this company, Meta, right, which was in recently, which was in big news that Facebook is, selling our data, doing this, doing that.
Data privacy.
Yeah, definitely. I would not make a controversial statement here, but if you see it at a wholesome point of view, then you can try to understand how Facebook actually generates revenue.
Yes.
I leave this thought to the audience, right? Let them think of it. One such way is ad revenue, definitely. Sponsors, definitely. But how exactly is the thing? So you got the idea, right? That is how things are working. That is how data actually, the power of data is today.
The important thing about this is also, which one of my uh, teachers gave me this thought, is why did Facebook acquire WhatsApp with the free messaging app? So
True,
this,
absolutely true. Now you might have got the hint, and this brings me to one other facet which we faced a couple of years earlier, Cambridge Analytica, if you remember.
mm,
That was the company, which was accused of modulating or modifying the elections, US elections, right? So how he did that? That is another scope, and that is, I think, out of the scope of this podcast. So let's keep
uh,
it that way.
I think the brief that I got from your answer, one thing I'd like to add, when you said that that content sensitivity that they understand through Python, I think one of the famous companies that are doing is Twitter, because it segregates content into, okay, this is the content of hatred. I should block this kind of content. This content should not be promoted. So I think Twitter uses that very well. Uh, Another thing that I got is that from now on, or from say 5 years since, businesses will be built around data. So you can be on the technical side of it as an engineer, uh, understanding data, or you can be from the business side of it, where you use that data which engineers have processed for you and make decisions on it. The backbone of the businesses will be on data.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah.
so the final question I would like to ask is, like, if you have any suggestion for someone who's in engineering, someone who's in his MBA, someone who's in his corporate life, since you have a, I think, 7 to 8 years experience in the corporate world as well. So any final piece of advice, anything that you have heard from your mentors, anything that you have inculcated in your life. So if you would like to give that to our audience.
This can be a very huge or a very long answer, I would say. But see, everybody has different goals. One thing, everybody has different goals. Some people would like a hefty paycheck. Some would like a quiet life with a good work-life balance, right? Some would want to, do something which is, not monetarily fetching, uh, but it's doing something good for the society.
Yes.
And even if you are stuck at a place, or you feel that like you're stuck at a place and you're not growing, uh, as you would like to call it, then also I would say it's completely okay. Right? Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, everything is important. It's not just that data is a new oil, so rush to the data. No, you are going to clog it. Right? If engineers are important, if the management in the data space is important, a person from a marketing field is equally important as well. HRs are also important for that matter. So everybody has a different role to play. It's not just that technology is booming. Okay, uh, let's go to the technology. That's the only way. No. So I guess uh, if you really want to grow, see around yourself. Always keep your eyes open. Think of the possibilities. See what you can achieve, right? What can be done, or what can bring good to you. And I think you'll do pretty much okay.
Thank you, sir. Like, I still have a lot of questions in my mind. We don't want to make it a 3 hour long podcast, but I have a lot of questions related to data analytics, questions related to robotics and its future. Maybe on another podcast, you can ask these questions as well. So, thank you so much for your time. I hope I had a teacher like you in my undergrad where I could also be so excited about data, I could be so excited about technology, learn from its basics. So hopefully our audience will learn the basics, will be more inquisitive about data, about technology after listening to this podcast. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing your
So,
wisdom with us.
anytime, anytime. Thank you very much. Pleasure's all mine. Thank you.